Yes, 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 party people. How are we doing? Antonio's in the chat, Magico's in the chat, Sally's here, of course. Thunder, good evening. How we doing? Oh, it's been a weird day. I feel like I've got to get back into the routine of these evening races because I just kind of forgot that Formula One was happening today. It was a bit of a weird one. It's my mum's birthday, so I went out for that. That probably took my mind off of it. But my goodness me, I cannot wait to see some cars out on track. Hello, everybody in the chat. How are we doing? Shayru, Reboka, Maja, Sarah, Roko, Demon001, Rimjom. Very close. How much time before the race starts? Around about 30 minutes or so, depending on how much delay YouTube has on the stream. I'll have a little look at it and sort it out as we get into stuff. Piastri win time. He's on the thumbnail. And I've got a feeling this is going to be the Piastri show, right? Starting from 16th place. What can he do from there? The McLaren man, just a little bit off of it when it came to sprint qualifying yesterday evening. It's going to be very, very interesting indeed. Happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you very much. How have we been? I'm good, Claude. I'm good. We are getting into it. Cars are actually out on track as we speak. So Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg was first to come around on the opening lap. In fact, I can show you if you want. Sainz, Hülkenberg, Piastri's just making his way to the back of the pack as well. Sergio Perez, George Russell and Leclerc still in the pits. I think that's Alex Albon coming out of the pit lane as well. Joe Guanyu, Bottas, Tsunoda making their way around. So cars are on track. We're just waiting, obviously, the next few minutes for them to get set up. And then we'll get underway with the sprint race in Austin. 8 points up for grab. Thank you for all the happy birthdays to my mum. I'll send it over. She'll massively appreciate it, I'm sure. Happy birthday. Thank you. The cars, as I said, out on track already. Also, it was interesting to see that the FIA were hovering around the Red Bull garage. So the Red Bull team had to show the FIA how their height adjustment system works. The FIA have stepped in. Supposedly, they have put together a plan to cover it over or seal it before or during Parc Ferme. So interesting that it's still a talking point. Obviously, I don't really know how I feel about it, to be honest with you. It feels like the kind of thing that, again, I can understand that the other teams are a little bit skeptical of it. Zach Brown in particular. But Zach Brown is skeptical of anything that McLaren doesn't do, to be honest. So basically, we're looking at everyone being a little bit skeptical of Red Bull and whether or not they were adjusting the height of that Red Bull car. But even without that, in sprint qualifying yesterday, when anybody could set their height to any kind of height they wanted, they were absolutely flying. Max Verstappen starts on pole position. It's been a little while since we've said that. The Red Bull car, with its upgrades, Max Verstappen's car heavily upgraded, particularly the floor of that Red Bull car. And looking very swift indeed. Not looking good for my fellow McLaren fans. Lando Norris starting behind him. We'll delve into the starting grid in a moment. Colapinto and Max Verstappen, actually the only two cars not yet onto the actual pit or the grid positions that they will be starting the Grand Prix from. Max Verstappen just making his way through the middle sector. Colapinto's just come around turn 11. But let's get into it, shall we? Now, I know it's a little bit early in the weekend, and I know that we've had sprint qualifying, but let's have a little look at the predictions because we didn't get time to yesterday, and I know you guys got your predictions in. I want to know what they were. So let's go down the community tab a touch, find the predictions. Let's see what you guys were thinking coming into this weekend, or it just won't load. That's also an option, isn't it? There we go. Oh, need to zoom in a touch. There we go. Earth Arrow thinks Max will win. Said that 3 days ago. Called it early. Red Bull car getting that upgrade. Ricardo races as Lawson becomes suspiciously sick. That would be interesting. Gary's going for Lando, Oscar, Charles, Lando podium. Or sorry, Lando winner. I mean, this is obviously for the Grand Prix, not necessarily the sprint, but we can take twos and throws from it. Flop team Sauber, that's not allowed anymore because that's just a given when it comes to the stake Sauber team, unfortunately for them. Max, Lando, Hamilton, winner Max says Invincible Gamer, best team McLaren. Hamilton's a good shout, actually. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton looking way better on the soft compound tyre in SQ3 yesterday. Really did turn up when they needed to. NASCAR Aviation Dude, podium, Lewis, Max, Lando. Lewis win? I mean, it'd be nice. I'm not sure Mercedes... Well, George Russell starting on the front row. I just don't know if Mercedes are quite there. I know that they were just before the summer break. They had a real dip in the 4 races post-summer break. Maybe in the 3 weeks since then, they have been able to get their car in the right mood. I mean, free practice 1, they were all over the place. And then when it came to sprint qualifying, they suddenly seemed to just click into action and really find some pace. So maybe I'm underestimating Lewis Hamilton there a little bit. Surprise Mercedes. Struggle Colapinto. I mean, he outqualified Alex Albon for the sprint race, but then, yeah, didn't have the cleanest SQ3 lap. Did Colapinto. A little bit frustrating from him. Flop team Alpine, I could definitely see. Flop team Alpine just for the Alpine livery. I absolutely hate it. There should be one and only orange team on the grid, and it's not Alpine. Gecko goes Lando, Oscar, Charles, podium, Sainz, Norris, Piastri, Sainz. I'm delusional. Definitely not delusional. The Ferrari was looking great during free practice. Charles Leclerc even said himself he was feeling really, really positive. And then suddenly in SQ3, the soft compound tyres went on, and the Red Bull of Verstappen and the Mercedes cars just seemed to jump into life a little bit. Carlos Sainz definitely not out of the running, but it is going to need a little tweak from Ferrari to push them in the right direction to gain on the cars ahead. Max, Lando, Lewis, Max Verstappen to win. Surprise Nico Hülkenberg. Nico Hülkenberg outqualified by Kevin Magnussen for the sprint race. Not something we've seen very much this season. Struggle Carlos Sainz, I'm not sure about. Surprise, Valtteri Bottas gets points. That really is delusional. Space out to the stake Sauber car looking absolutely dead and buried for the rest of the season. Real says Lando, Charles, Max, Lando, Max, Leclerc, Norris, Piastri, Leclerc says racing 1,000, Lando, Lewis, Charles. It's a bit of a mix. I think this is just going to show how exciting the end of the season really is this year, because it is going to be so close between those top 4 teams and very track dependent. Therefore, we are seeing a mix. We're seeing Lando wins. We're seeing Lewis wins. We're seeing Max wins. Really is a mix in terms of your guys' predictions. Piastri winner, not likely to happen in the sprint, but he was pretty positive, actually. He's you know, kind of held his hand up, said he made a mistake, knows what he needs to do to improve moving forwards. I feel like I should make this a little bit smaller, but then if someone writes a little sentence like Earth-Harry, let's make it a little bit smaller and see what happens, shall we? Let's do that. Apologies if you write a little sentence. I'll read it out rather than covering my head so much. Charles, Lando, Max, Charles. It is just a real mix. Lando, Charles, Oscar. Through 1-1-1. Love the Fernando Alonso. Max, Oscar, Charles. Oscar, Lando, Lewis. McLaren 1-2. Colapinto P6 to P8. I like. Antonio, here he is. Lando, Oscar, A Merc. Just one of them. Well, it doesn't matter which one. Russell, Hamilton, all the same. Why is there fake hair over the podium part of the image? Fake hair, podium part of the image. Is there fake? I mean, both of them wearing hats. Not sure. Not sure what he's going for. Not sure what he's going for, to be honest with you. But apparently there's fake hair here. Where can we see the hair? This is Lewis Hamilton wearing a hat. I've silhouetted out on the podium. This is Charles Leclerc again wearing a hat on the podium. This was Max Verstappen, silhouetted out. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz. Yeah, not sure. This was Kevin Magnussen, I think. This was Nick de Vries. Shout out. And obviously, Toto Wolff. I don't know what's going on, but Charles, we're just having a little look at some predictions. So if you want to get involved in the predictions pre the weekend, on a Wednesday, I put out our predictions on the community tab. You can get your predictions in the comments underneath, and we have a little wander through them as we set up for the Grand Prix itself. Obviously, this weekend being a sprint weekend, looking at it a little bit earlier on in the weekend. Who are you guys saying in the chat? When's the sprint? About 12 minutes time indeed. Norris to beat Verstappen in the sprint, otherwise his chances will decrease. That is very true. Norris does need to beat Verstappen. It's looking unlikely. Norris looking really uncomfortable with the car yesterday. Like, Norris was not happy at all with the car, and the McLaren team didn't really have too many answers for it. How do I stay awake for quali? Usually go to bed around 9:30, 10. Tired after last night. Look at the gap between the sprint and quali. Should I tell you what I'm doing between the sprint and quali? It's a banger of a day. So because I finished work so late yesterday and then had to come straight into doing this and then went straight to bed afterwards, I need to do a Morrison shop. I need to do the washing up. And I need to look for a hotel in Brighton. That's what I'm doing in the couple of hours between. That's very exciting, my life. High energy, if ever I have seen it. Hulkenberg ahead of K-Mag. You think they're going to swap? Swap. I don't know. Don't forget Mercedes. I think Carlos Sainz will win. Definitely not a Ferrari fan. Carlos Sainz is getting a lot of love this weekend. To be fair, it's one of the tracks that he does prefer. I know that Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, both really like this track, and Ferrari usually pretty good in COTA as it is anyway. They make sense. What is Oscar doing in P16? Made a mistake yesterday. Went wide at turn 19. Went off the track. Lap time deleted. Down to 16th place. Do a recap of qualifying. We'll get there, don't worry. We will indeed. We'll go through the grid. Max Lando Russell for the podium. Okay. George Russell was saying he feels pretty, well, obviously he's going to say he's feeling pretty confident, but he does think that the Mercedes car will be right up there this weekend and is happy to jump into it. Yeah, 3-hour gap. What are we going to do with ourselves? What happened to Lando's car? Nothing. Just couldn't quite get the balance right. Wasn't very happy with it. How likely is a safety car? Going by previous races, not very likely at all. Any caffeine suggestions? I like a Red Bull. I mean, I've got a few in the background. The old Red Bull tree right there. But I know it's very cliche. I don't mind a Red Bull. I'm not a fan of Monster. I'm not a coffee guy either, which is I know coffee is like probably the best choice. Feels a little bit more natural than the petrol that they put in a Red Bull can. But I don't know. I just don't really like the taste of coffee. It tastes like burn. It's like burnt. Safety car within 5 laps, probably. Considering my luck, considering what normally happens when I make predictions or when I make statements, probably. I think it's 3 times this season now where I've made a video either about a driver or about like predicting drivers to go in various directions, and then literally like the day after, there's been news that has then completely made that video null and void. I've been really, really impressive with it. Name a car for an edit. Just any car. What are people's favorite cars? That'd be interesting. Good question. Ranveer, that is an odd thing to say. You think Lawson will finish in the top 10? Should we get into it? Should we look at the qualifying lineup and where the grid positions are? 15 minutes to go before the 19-lap sprint race here in. Need better coffee? Yeah, I just think it's because I've never made coffee properly. Like, because I don't think I like coffee, I haven't put in the expense of good coffee, and therefore it's just like, It's a never-ending cycle, isn't it? You get cheap coffee, it's bad. You think you don't like coffee, so you just buy cheap coffee every now and then when you need to. And the cycle continues. It's a terrible, terrible spiral I found myself in. How do I feel about Daniel leaving? I can understand it. I understand the reasoning behind it. I understand why the team made the decision when they did. I feel like it could have been handled better. I feel like they could have, maybe given us an opportunity to actually say goodbye to Daniel rather than in Singapore making him come out in various statements and various interviews where he's saying, no, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like the end of time for Daniel Ricciardo without us ever actually being able to be like, Daniel, we know you're leaving. Tell us how you're feeling. Tell us what you think. Da, da, da. Instead, he had to play the whole, oh, well, I might be back. I might not be back. Might still be in the seat. Might not be. Just absolutely ridiculous. Chat is delayed in the stream. Just a tiny bit. Yeah, it takes time for it to, be sent to whatever internet place and then come back again. Be put up on the screen over here. Zonda Pagani. Nice. Isn't Sauber's cut upgraded marginally? Try combining coffee with cocoa. That does have a name, doesn't it? That's a mocha, no? What did you say? Lawson is better than Danny. Not necessarily better, but I can understand why they've made the decision. I don't think Daniel Ricciardo was ever going to get back to that Red Bull seat alongside Max Verstappen. Helmut Marko's been trying to get Liam Lawson into that seat for the entire season. You've got to think there's the problem with Red Bull at the same time. There's so many twos and fro's. There's so many people stirring the pot all the time. It's not like Mercedes, as much as Mercedes is a completely different franchise. It does feel like Toto Wolff has the final say, like always at Mercedes. And maybe that's what you need a little bit. Whereas Red Bull, it feels like you've got Christian Horner, you've got Helmut Marko. You've kind of got Max Verstappen, who's elevated himself to the point where him and Jos also have quite a bit of pulling power in Red Bull. Then obviously you've got the Austrian side of the Red Bull, the Thai side of Red Bull. You've got a lot of people, it feels like, all pulling in lots of different directions, which does end up, especially in the driver market, as we've seen with Red Bull, with this kind of fractious, well, he wasn't my choice. He wasn't my choice. He was his choice. They're his choice. Like when Nick de Vries came in, as soon as he didn't work, Helmut Marko was like, yeah, I never expected it to. Then Christian Horner got Daniel Ricciardo in. Again, that felt like Christian Horner's choice rather than Helmut Marko's choice or Jos Verstappen's choice. It was just like there's lots of different fragments of Red Bull that all slightly pull in different directions, which does make it very difficult for the drivers to understand where they're going to be. Read my chat. There you go, just did. Piastri in qualifying was something. Just a mistake, wasn't it? Just a poor mistake. Not getting that banker lap in. Went out quite early. And the track was evolving as well. Medium compound tires. It was slippery. Yeah, just a little mistake from Oscar. Very, very disappointing though. What do you think of eating Skittles in milk? Never tried it. Doesn't sound great. Although you can buy Skittles milkshakes, so maybe. Have you ever thought about eating Skittles? How has that come up 4 times? I call this a second new year with the timing. 10 minutes or so. Should we actually do the grid? I've been very distracted today by the chat. It's lovely to have a little back and to and fro, back and forth with you guys. Max Verstappen starts on pole position for Red Bull. His updated Red Bull car looking a lot more stable around here. So the floor and the flexi front wing introduced to Max Verstappen's Red Bull car for the final 6 races of the season. And just talking about it now, he's saying, we understand that we are more competitive, but there's still a lot of competitive cars around him. And he knows that he's still got a challenge up ahead to win this sprint race. Max Verstappen leading it, though. George Russell behind him in 2nd spot. And Russell also feeling very, very positive about how Mercedes were able to adapt their car between free practice 1 and sprint qualifying. They looked like a completely different package. It was spinning all over the place when it came to free practice 1. Had those few hours in between sprint qualifying and free practice, and they seemed to just about get it together. Charles Leclerc, third spot behind them. Then Lando Norris in fourth place. He wasn't very happy with the balance of the McLaren car. Said that he struggled with it. I think he can still do things from fourth spot. It's going to be a long 19 laps, though. It's going to be very, very tough for him to move forward into the podium places, in my opinion. Carlos Sainz starts in fifth spot. Then we've got Nico Hülkenberg absolutely smashing it. Sixth spot for Nico Hülkenberg in a Haas. Like, he does just continue doing it, doesn't he? Over and over and over again. It's just... Nico Hülkenberg is always seemingly that best of the rest driver in the midfield. And when a few drivers have a slip up, when Hamilton, Perez, Piastri all kind of had a tricky qualifying session, Nico Hülkenberg took advantage of it. He starts in sixth spot, 3 points. Could be going to Nico Hülkenberg if he finishes there. Lewis Hamilton behind him in seventh place. He was really unhappy with the Mercedes car, to be fair. George Russell praising the fact that they were able to switch it slightly between free practice and the race. Hamilton not so. Hamilton really unfortunate with his positioning. And okay, he probably will get ahead of Hülkenberg, you'd imagine. But then from there, sixth spot is probably where Hamilton is going to be. Kevin Magnussen behind in eighth spot. A double points finish available to the Haas team. Yuki Tsunoda starts just outside the point scoring places in ninth. And Colapinto also made his way into SQ3. He qualified in 10th, though, after a couple of little errors in that final qualifying session. And it's going to be Tsunoda, Colapinto, Magnussen. That could be a lovely little battle, to be honest. Mix Sergio Perez in there as well. Why not? Sergio Perez dropping out in SQ2 yesterday. He starts in 11th place on the grid. Pierre Gasly starts beside him in 12th. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso start 13th and 14th after Fernando Alonso's lap time was deleted. He dropped down into 14th spot. Same with Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson also had a lap time deleted, so didn't technically set a lap time in SQ2. He starts in 15th place. And tomorrow he'll be starting from the back of the... tomorrow he'll be starting from the back of the grid anyway, as he takes an engine penalty into the Grand Prix, does Liam Lawson. So not the, hope, or not the opening he was probably hoping for when he came into that seat, but has to take the engine penalty because it is still the car that Daniel Ricciardo has been riding around in for 16 Grand Prix so far this season. No, 18 Grand Prix this season, sorry, 18 Grand Prix. We had Daniel Ricciardo in the car. Liam Lawson comes into it, takes that engine penalty. Oscar Piastri was the big loser in SQ1. Dropped down to 16th place after his final lap time was deleted for going wide at turn 19. And the banker lap that he put in earlier just wasn't good enough. 16th spot for Oscar Piastri. Keep an eye on the McLaren car, though. I'm imagining he'll be the one making moves forwards. Esteban Ocon starts in 17th place for Alpine. Pierre Gasly. No, where am I going? Valtteri Bottas in 18th spot behind him in the Stake Sauber car. And at the back of the grid, Zhou Guanyu. Alex Albon will be starting from the pit lane. The Williams team deciding to make some adjustments to Alex Albon's car. Not imagining that they're going to get up towards the point scoring places in the sprint, and therefore getting that job done before they then get into the actual qualifying session for the Grand Prix, where I'm sure the Williams team thinks some points might be available to them. Do you think that Hülkenberg would be a World Drivers' Championship contender with a top 1 or top 2 car? He is really on form this season, isn't he? Really on form. I think, to be honest with you, most of the drivers on the grid in the right car at the right time would probably be championship contenders. Like, there's a reason that you get into Formula One in the first place, right? There's a reason that these drivers are here, and there's a reason that they stick around for so long. Nico Hülkenberg, to be fair, I feel like if Nico Hülkenberg was in Sergio Perez's seat, he would have done much better than the Mexican driver throughout the season. Let's say that, right? Not necessarily that he'd be a championship contender. I don't know if he's quite the level of Lando Norris and Max Verstappen this year. If you put them in, if you put Hülkenberg in a Red Bull, does he beat Verstappen? Unlikely. Does he beat Norris in a McLaren? Also unlikely. So I feel like he'd just be an exceptional second driver, which is what Stakes Sauber want him to be, right? Audi have got this idea of them coming into Formula One and becoming a really successful team in the future. Audi literally have brought in Nico Hülkenberg to be a really solid and really good number 2. They were hoping Carlos Sainz was going to be the other driver beside him, but actually it's ended up being, well, nobody yet. Maybe Nico Hülkenberg will end up being the number 1 there in that Stakes Sauber stroke Audi setup moving forwards. Am I the only one who actually likes sprints? No. I absolutely love a sprint weekend. I'm well in for a sprint weekend. I think we've got just about the right amount. I feel like between 6 and 8. 6 and 8 sprints a year out of the 24 Grand Prix. About a quarter of the races. Spot on. Like a quarter to a third of the races being sprints, I think is where we should be. Hülkenberg is better than Max and Lando combined. Okay. 10 positions lower than him. Ooh, wow. Albon getting sacked by Colapinto. Yeah, I don't really know what happened with Alex Albon, to be honest. He just really seemed uncomfortable in the car. And then he did that spin, didn't he? Obviously lost the car over the curbs at turn 19. So went for it a little bit too hard, did Alex Albon. Bumped over the curbs, did that pirouette through turn 19. Did really well to catch the car, completed the lap, but obviously when you do a 360 between turn 19 and turn 20, never really makes you go quicker than if you were to just sort of do that by going in a straight line. Quali when? Quali happened? Well, sprint qualifying happened. Remember, we're in the sprint race. Not yet into the actual qualifying session. Quali is later on this evening. So after the sprint race tonight, we've got about a 3-hour gap. Just under by the time the sprint race actually finishes. And we'll get onto it. And I'm really looking forward to it, actually. I think qualifying this evening, because we're going to have the cars on the soft compound tyres from the beginning, I think that's the only thing with sprint qualifying. You obviously have the medium runs in SQ1 and SQ2. Then you're only allowed softs in SQ3, so it slightly kind of surprises the drivers a little bit. You don't quite have that same build-up to SQ3. I feel like qualifying this afternoon or later on this evening could be very, very interesting indeed. But we are indeed about to get going. The race has started. Not in my time zone, it hasn't. Or at least not by me. First time listener from California. How things in Blighty? Cold and wet. But that's just sort of the United Kingdom in general. So, do I think that in these final 6 races, Liam can outperform Yuki? Because I think it's too early to tell. Oh, yeah, it's very much too early to tell. We've only seen Liam Lawson in 1 qualifying session. And it was a sprint qualifying session. And he'd only been in the car for 1 free practice session. So, got to give him a little bit of leeway. If you look at the comparison of them last year, the problem is that Yuki Tsunoda had a good few DNFs while Liam Lawson was in the car. Like Yuki Tsunoda DNF'd in Singapore, DNF'd in Monza, and we didn't really get an actual side-by-side comparison of their race pace throughout 5 Grand Prix. We only actually got to see them race side-by-side once or twice. So I hope this time around we actually get to see Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda in the same Grand Prix as one another, rather than one or the other DNFing from the entire thing. Gene's Machine on the top of the Haas car. Of course, the Toyota logos onto the Haas car for this weekend. Keep an eye out for those. Massive, massive deal for Haas, that one. Very, very exciting for them indeed. Let's move into the race board. We got some 1 minute timers coming in. 45 seconds, Sergio Perez is told over the radio. Goodness gracious me. What is Colapinto having a chat about? He's having a little natter to his race engineer. Ooh. I need to cut the bottom off this. Too far, too far. Also too far. There we go. Here we go then. The formation lap is underway. Max Verstappen makes his way up the hill towards turn 1. 5 seconds. Good luck, Valtteri Bottas. Bournemouth winning over Arsenal? No way. Actually, I haven't checked any of the football scores. Does anyone know the Norwich-Stoke score? Niche one. Norwich-Stoke, I'm interested in, and I can't remember if Liverpool are playing today. I really haven't been very good at keeping up with anything that's going on in the world over the course of today, to be honest. I've kind of been in my own little dreamland for the majority of it. Lando's ego would be too high if he won the championship. Do you think? I don't know. I feel like he'd be going fairly chill about it. Jesus Christ, there's so many red cards in the Premier League today. Goodness me. Championship. Norwich. 1-1 with Stoke, of course. Dear. Okay. Let's focus in. Formation lap is happening. Max Verstappen making his way down towards turn 11. Hamilton on the radio. Ooh. Front right wheel is clicking when he brakes. Liverpool v Chelsea tomorrow. Yes, of course it is. But Lewis Hamilton's front right tyre not feeling overly comfortable in this formation lap in the Mercedes car. Saying that something is clicking for Lewis Hamilton. Lando Norris getting right under the rear wing of Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen back in the pack up a little bit. And disappearing up the road. George Russell just falling away from Max Verstappen a touch as they come towards turn 19. As of course, Alex Albon starting from the pit lane. So Zhou Guanyu, the final driver, who will have to take their position on the starting grid. So just coming around turn 13. Max Verstappen, though, man on pole, is finally making his way around to his starting grid position. There's George Russell's Mercedes as well. Lewis Hamilton being told on the data, there's nothing that looks to be a concern. So the data pointing towards it being okay for Lewis Hamilton. Hopefully so. Like to see Lewis Hamilton have a little scrap with Nico Hülkenberg. I feel like that could be a nice little battle. Toyota logos on the rear wing of the Hülkenberg car. Got the first 3 rows settled in. There is Lewis Hamilton taking his position. Kevin Magnussen peels to the left-hand side of the track to take his spot. Tsunoda and Colapinto will form in behind Sergio Perez. Then in 11th spot, the Alpine of Pierre Gasly just making his way very slowly to his grid position on the left-hand side of the track. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso side by side in the Aston Martins. Liam Lawson takes his space. There is Oscar Piastri coming in 16th spot just to the left-hand side of Lawson. Ocon, Bottas and Zhou come to a stop. Green flag is waved. And we're about to get underway here in COTA. Formula One is back, ladies and gentlemen. And will it be back with a bang? Max Verstappen gets us going here in Austin. George Russell tries to make a move, but Max Verstappen comes across to the left-hand side of the track to cover him off. It's Max Verstappen. Lando Norris tries to lunge up the inside of the Ferraris. Charles Leclerc's being pinned between Sainz and his teammate. Oh my goodness me. George Russell's under pressure from Norris as well, and Norris is up into second. Norris with a huge move up towards turn 1 and then through turn 2 on Russell. It's beautiful from Lando Norris. He gets right under the rear wing of his championship rival Max Verstappen. George Russell now under pressure. Charles Leclerc still holds on to 4th ahead of Sainz. The Ferraris were exactly side by side going around turn 1. Hamilton has moved up after Nico Hülkenberg. A really poor start for the German. He's dropped back behind Yuki Tsunoda, who now moves up into the point-scoring places. Sergio Perez has got the better of Colapinto up into 11th. Gasly, Stroll, Piastri has moved up a couple of spots. Alonso and Lawson have dropped. Lawson making a move on Alonso, and Alonso drops behind Liam Lawson. Esteban Ocon. Here goes Charles Leclerc on George Russell. George Russell tries to hold on. Charles Leclerc right beside him down towards, and it's so close between the two of them, and Charles Leclerc will not let it rest. Oh my goodness me, wheel-to-wheel action between the two cars in 3rd and 4th spot. Charles Leclerc just would not give up that position. George Russell, though, holds on to third as Lando Norris starts his run towards the Red Bull car. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz behind now in the Ferraris. Hamilton in 6th spot. Alex Albon has joined the back of the pack after starting in the pit lane. Let's see what his Williams can do against the Stake Saubers at the rear end of the grid. We come to start the second lap of the Grand Prix, and Verstappen still leads. Norris second, Russell third. Russell and Leclerc both losing out to Lando Norris in that. Hamilton, Magnussen, Tsunoda also gained positions because of Hülkenberg's poor start. Sergio Perez has gained a place. Lance Stroll has gained a place on Pierre Gasly. And Oscar Piastri, has gained 2 positions in 14th as well. Hello, Lofi, mate. How you doing? when Ferrari tells somebody is cheating. George Russell under pressure still from Leclerc. Leclerc went for it. It was lovely to see Leclerc and Russell side by side all the way through turn 12, 13 and 14. And Carlos Sainz is now having a look at his teammate as well. Of course, only 5 races left after this weekend for Carlos Sainz in a Ferrari car. He wants to make the most of it, and he's not worried about the fact that Charles Leclerc is leading in front of him, and they're the teammates. Carlos Sainz is going to make a move. What a dive from Carlos Sainz. He's gone super wide, though, and he's opened the door for Charles Leclerc to go back through, and Charles Leclerc does. Carlos Sainz. Wow. They are really going for it. That was a dive bomb from Carlos Sainz, but unfortunately, Carlos Sainz ending up slotting in behind Charles Leclerc at the end of it. Went a little bit too wide on the exit, did Carlos Sainz, but he's going to be right up underneath Charles Leclerc once again. The DRS, of course, activated. And here are the Ferraris side by side into turn 1. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc going for it again. Leclerc goes for the switch back on him, and Leclerc continues to hold on to 4th spot. But Carlos Sainz is not making it easy for the Monegasque. It really is. Both of the Ferrari cars interchanging positions every single couple of laps, every single few corners, sorry. George Russell sets the fastest lap of the sprint race so far. With 3 laps in, 17 laps left to go in this one, and a lot of storylines still to play out. There's an incident involving Kevin Magnussen leaving the track and gaining an advantage, noted by the stewards. Charles Leclerc, though, still under pressure from Carlos Sainz. We're watching the Ferraris at the moment because it does feel like Carlos Sainz is absolutely going for it here in COTA. Charles Leclerc under pressure from Carlos Sainz again. Sainz looking at the rear wing of Leclerc. Doesn't get it done in towards turn 12 this time around. And Leclerc was hoping to be battling with George Russell ahead, but is under so much pressure from his teammate. Fallen away a little bit from George Russell in front. George Russell, though, this sprint race is going. And Charles Leclerc saying on the radio, look, I appreciate that Carlos Sainz wants to get ahead of me, but if we work together, maybe we can get in front of Russell or even Lando Norris. But I'm not sure that Carlos Sainz is going to be convinced, because Carlos Sainz, DRS open once more, looking up towards his teammate at turn 1. Doesn't go for it this time around. Here we go then. Max Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. The clean air for the Red Bull car maybe coming into its advantage. Here's a little replay of the start. I want to know what happened to Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg just got a little bit bogged down, did Nico Hülkenberg. And then he's on the inside of the track and just gets pinned by Yuki Tsunoda a little bit. By the time they get towards turn 2, Hamilton, Magnussen, Tsunoda have all disappeared into the distance. It's just a poor start from Nico Hülkenberg. Unfortunately, gets bogged down straight away. Here's the onboard from Max Verstappen. You can see just Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, and Carlos Sainz 3 abreast through turn 1. Lando Norris uses that advantage, getting right up the inside to then go around the outside of George Russell into turn 2. I know we've talked about Lando Norris's starts a little bit this season, and the fact that they haven't always been the best. That is probably the best start of the season from Lando Norris here for the sprint race in Austin. Jumped up a couple of positions within the first corner and got himself into the perfect position to also then get around George Russell. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz still battling it out on the Ferraris. Carlos Sainz not yet going for that move that we saw him go for a couple of laps ago. Maybe realizing now that they could actually get on the back of George Russell. Charles Leclerc, though, is now outside of DRS range of George Russell, whereas Carlos Sainz still within that DRS territory. Maybe will have that advantage and go for another move. You can see the letterbox opening for Carlos Sainz, but not for Charles Leclerc. Not up towards turn 1 this time around. 15 laps left to go in this sprint race, though. Lando Norris has dropped to a 1.5 seconds off the back of Max Verstappen. Verstappen really finding the pace inside of that Red Bull car. 0.3 of a second quicker last lap than Lando Norris. George Russell in third spot is actually holding onto the rear ring of the McLaren car quite nicely. Charles Leclerc has moved back within a second of George Russell to get that DRS advantage once more. Carlos Sainz in 5th, Hamilton 6th. Kevin Magnussen up 7th place still, and a couple of points on the cards for Kevin. Yuki Tsunoda getting a point there would make it very interesting indeed, by the way, because, Sergio Perez goes super wide at turn 12 on lap 2 of the Grand Prix. A little replay of the Mexican going wide, and here's George Russell having a little look. Carlos Sainz also having a look at Charles Leclerc as well. George Russell is going to try and make a move on Lando Norris. And George Russell right underneath the rear wing of the McLaren. Here goes Carlos Sainz again. Carlos Sainz up the inside, pushes Charles Leclerc wide. Don't know if he's going to hold on to the position. They're side by side still. Charles Leclerc trying to go up the inside. Carlos Sainz ahead of his teammate. I'm not sure though. Did push Charles Leclerc quite a bit wider through that turn 14. Did he gain an advantage by pushing Charles Leclerc off the track? They'll have to see. But Carlos Sainz now moves up into 4th spot, and he becomes the Ferrari that is hunting down the podium scoring places. Oscar Piastri's only been able to move up into 13th spot from the guys towards the back end of the pack. Lance Stroll still causing him a bit of a headache. Colapinto has dropped off Sergio Perez. Perez, though, more than a second behind Nico Hülkenberg at this point. Kevin Magnussen and Yuki Tsunoda having a little battle, but Tsunoda has to slot in behind Kevin Magnussen for now. Battles up and down the grid, and all of the point scoring places could still swap hands by the looks of things. Everyone under pressure. Lewis Hamilton trying to gain back on the Ferraris. Carlos Sainz on the radio. Carlos Sainz, let's go get him. Giving the go-ahead from the Ferrari team to push it. Here's George Russell, though. DRS wide open. Down towards turn 12. Lap 6 of this sprint race. Lando Norris tries to peel to the inside, then outside to cover George Russell. Russell has a real look at the chrome McLaren car. Round the inside. Is he going to duck into the inside at turn 13? He is. It's around turn 14. They try. They're side by side through 15. Lando Norris is going to have the inside line, but Russell isn't going to give it up. Russell pushed wide through 15 and 16, but Lando Norris holds on to the position. Lando Norris now 2 seconds adrift of Verstappen. Verstappen looking comfortable at the tip of this run. And it is the top 6 running away from Kevin Magnussen and Yuki Tsunoda at the moment. The Yuki Tsunoda getting that point, as I said, does make it very interesting. He then gets to within a point of Hülkenberg and Stroll ahead. Verstappen got it under control, as the McLaren team are told. Lando Norris using slightly older tyres than Max Verstappen as well, by the way. George Russell also running the same age tyres as Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz has been gaining pretty substantially. Up to 4th spot now is Carlos Sainz, and within a second of George Russell. Charles Leclerc has held on to the back of his teammate, though. And in 5th spot now, the Monegasque driver, Lewis Hamilton, his soon-to-be teammate, gaining on the back of them as well. We've got a real pack of 6 at the front. Max Verstappen, probably the most comfortable of them. This is full-on racing between these guys here. Everybody interchanging position. Kevin Magnussen has been able to put Yuki Tsunoda a couple of seconds behind now as well. So Magnussen looking a lot better. Nico Hülkenberg going to make a move on Tsunoda. Hülkenberg goes for it. And we've got both of the Hasses up into the points. Hülkenberg gets himself ahead of Yuki Tsunoda down towards turn 12. And Hülkenberg moves back up into 8th spot. We could be on for a double Haas points finish, which in the championship standings, we have a little look at the live championship standings as they are. Oh, I put it on the qualifying board. I'm an idiot. Hang on. We look at the championship standings as they would be. It would mean Verstappen gains 8 points. But look here. RB would drop behind Haas. That 3-point game for the Haas team jumps them up into 6th spot. RB down into 7th. So the Haas's doing an amazing job here this afternoon. Hülkenberg would also move ahead of Stroll on points. Goodness gracious me. This would be the perfect start to the Austin Grand Prix weekend and the perfect start to the Toyota partnership at Haas. Carlos Sainz recharging his battery. Charles Leclerc now looking at the back of Carlos Sainz. The roles have reversed. Lando Norris has actually pushed up a little bit, has gained 0.6 of a second on Verstappen and left George Russell adrift. Hamilton just holding on to the back of the pack as well. Does make you wonder if Hamilton's just holding on to his tyres a little bit here. And will come into contention a little bit later on. Fernando Alonso making a move. Gets up into 17th. Nope. The AlphaTauri of Liam Lawson does not want Fernando Alonso to get through. And actually, it cost Fernando Alonso a position to Esteban Ocon as well. Fernando Alonso not very happy with Liam Lawson at all. And Esteban Ocon then also, because Liam Lawson was pushed wide by Fernando Alonso, he then goes up the inside, and Ocon has got himself up to 15th spot in all of that. Lawson down to 16th. Fernando Alonso down to 17th spot. Oscar Piastri is up into 12th, by the way. Piastri, though, under investigation for pushing Gasly off the track. Maybe does down towards turn 12 as he makes that move on Pierre Gasly, but he's now past Lance Stroll as well anyway. That is under investigation, though. Max Verstappen leads a 1.5 seconds to Lando Norris. Another 1.5 seconds to George Russell behind. Carlos Sainz looking at the back of the Mercedes car now. And George Russell no longer with DRS. Charles Leclerc is also holding on to the back of his teammate in 5th. Hamilton down in 6th spot has actually fell adrift now. He's 7 seconds off the lead and 3 seconds off the back of Charles Leclerc. Kevin Magnussen holding on to 7th spot, looking comfortable. Couple of seconds ahead of his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, who then also has a 1.5 seconds gap to Yuki Tsunoda. It's looking perfect for the Haas team. Tsunoda now 9th. Sergio Perez only up into 10th place, but is now looking to make a move on Yuki Tsunoda. And Hülkenberg will just be hoping that he can hold him off. Oh, Carlos Sainz going for a move on George Russell. Oh, it's a lovely move. Carlos Sainz is on an absolute tear today. Carlos Sainz making moves where nobody else would. And he goes around the outside of George Russell's Mercedes car. Tries to open the door now. Can Charles Leclerc also take advantage of the fact that the Mercedes car is slightly off balance because he had to adjust for Carlos Sainz coming around the outside of him? Down up towards turn 1. George Russell has a look up the inside of Carlos Sainz, but has to also be wary of Charles Leclerc behind. Leclerc takes a slightly smoother line through turn 1. Has a look right at the rear end of the Mercedes car. Through the S's they go. And the rear wing of George Russell's car almost painted red by Leclerc there. Now coming around, it's going to be Leclerc down towards turn 12 again on Carlos Sainz to try and make a move. Lando Norris did gain on Max Verstappen by a 10th last lap. Still 10 laps left to go in this sprint. We're just about halfway through. And the tyres will start to degrade. We're going to start to see some tyres squealing, especially for those guys at the front of the pack. Lando Norris moving to within striking distance of Verstappen. Can he get himself back within DRS range? Charles Leclerc has a look at George Russell, but Russell still within DRS range of Carlos Sainz, so uses the Spaniard to defend. Can Charles Leclerc have a little look through this middle sector? Ferraris look really stable through sort of turn 12, 13, 14. And here goes Charles Leclerc. Literally, as I said it, he goes for it, pushes George Russell wide. Charles Leclerc around the outside of the next corner. And Charles Leclerc has taken the spot. George Russell on the radio saying that the Ferraris are just looking ridiculously quick. And both of them have made short work of George Russell's Mercedes car. He's now back down into 5th. Remember, George Russell started in 2nd spot on the grid today, but the race pace just not there for the Mercedes car. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc now starting their battle. Can they get towards Lando Norris ahead? 9 laps left to go for the 2 Ferrari cars after their battle with one another. Starting to move in the right direction. Here comes Oscar Piastri on Franco Colapinto. Colapinto moves to the inside. So Oscar Piastri decides to do a little switchback from him. Try and get the run at him towards the S's. And again, just right under the rear wing of the Williams car. Oscar Piastri holding on to the back of the Williams. Piastri not giving up on the point scoring places yet as we're halfway through. Oh, Oscar Piastri, though, as I say that, is confirmed. A 5-second penalty for pushing Pierre Gasly wide through turn 12. So that is Oscar Piastri with a 5-second penalty for forcing Pierre Gasly wide at turn 12. That does pretty much ruin Oscar Piastri's chances of getting anywhere near the point scoring places, because he's not going to be able to get to Hulkenberg, pass Hulkenberg, and also be 5 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack, you would imagine, in just 9 laps of the Grand Prix. Also doesn't actually make the move on Colapinto down towards turn 12 either. Verstappen still looking comfortable at the front. That gap had dropped to 1 second. It's now back to 2 to Lando Norris in 2nd spot. Carlos Sainz then another couple of seconds adrift. Charles Leclerc actually puts in the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, but he is a second off the pace, or second off his teammate, sorry. George Russell has fallen way back. 3.5 seconds the gap now to George Russell. The cars in the tyres, on that Mercedes just seem to be absolutely nowhere. And Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc putting George Russell to the sword. Lewis Hamilton has started to gain on his teammate a touch, though. Hamilton, 6th spot, was 4 or 5 seconds adrift. Now 2.2 seconds. Can he gain on it? Kevin Magnussen just staying that comfortable. 5 seconds adrift of Hamilton. Lovely bit of clean air for Kevin Magnussen. 3-second gap to Nico Hulkenberg behind him. Yuki Tsunoda's doing them a real favour at the moment, actually, because keeping Sergio Perez at bay. Sergio Perez still in 10th. Colapinto 11th. Piastri 12th. Lance Stroll up to 13th. Gasly, Ocon in 14th and 15th side by side in the Alpines. Lawson still ahead of Alonso in 16th and 17th place. Alex Albon, after starting from the pits, has been able to get in front of both of the Stake Sauber cars. Bottas and Joe falling backwards. And here is Sergio Perez on Yuki Tsunoda. As I said, he was still stuck behind him, and he makes that move. Piastri also gets in front of Colapinto. So those two drivers deciding that now is the time. But here comes Yuki Tsunoda on Sergio Perez. What a defensive maneuver from Yuki Tsunoda. Can he make it stick? Go on, Tsunoda. Get up the inside. No, just doesn't have the traction to make it work. Tsunoda tried his best through turn 15, 16 to hold on to that position. Dived up the inside of Sergio Perez. Could have been tears for the Red Bull garage if Sergio Perez hadn't reacted to him. But Sergio Perez does hold on to that position for now. Is Yuki Tsunoda going to have a go at him, though? DRS wide open for the RB. He's closing in, is Yuki Tsunoda. Gets up. Oh, it's a big lock up towards turn 1 for Yuki Tsunoda, though. He tried to lunge and do a little bit of an overcut, maybe. But Yuki Tsunoda's not giving up this position, by the way. He is not very happy at all that Sergio Perez has taken 9th spot off of him. Yuki Tsunoda going for it. Again, Tsunoda, always underappreciated, I feel like, in the whole Red Bull drivers discussion. He wants to prove that he is the main man still at RB, as he is in the championship and as he has been throughout this entire season, really. Oscar Piastri, though, the move on Colapinto gets it done, and cleanly this time. Still a 5-second penalty for Oscar Piastri in all of this. Other investigations that are going on, not too many at the moment. All good. Lando Norris desperately needs those 137s. Trying. Oh, Yuki Tsunoda taken to the runoff area. And Piastri doesn't want to get done again. for another 5-second penalty down towards turn 11. He's not giving it up, though, is Piastri. And Yuki Tsunoda now having to fight the McLaren behind. McLaren side by side with Tsunoda still as they go through the long, winding sort of 16, 17, 18 corners, even though it's kind of one long corner, really. Oscar Piastri, though, has to settle for 11th for now. Sergio Perez up into 9th and escaping away from Yuki Tsunoda a touch as Oscar Piastri now puts the RB under pressure. Oscar Piastri goes to the outside of the track towards turn 1. Yuki Tsunoda tries to cover the inside. And here comes Oscar Piastri. Is he going to be able to go around the outside at turn 2? Not quite. No room at the end this time around as Yuki Tsunoda slams the door shut on Oscar Piastri's McLaren car. But Yuki Tsunoda holding on to every single position he possibly can, fighting for his life. Tsunoda give the position back to Oscar Piastri. I mean, he did leave the track, but Piastri kind of ushered him over there, I would say. I thought it was pretty hard, but fine racing between the two. They're not giving the position back because Yuki Tsunoda darts to the inside of the track, trying to put Oscar Piastri off as they go through the middle sector together around turn 11 through to turn 12. Piastri has a little look, but nothing doing this time around. Trying to go around towards turn 14, 15. Piastri trying to go up the inside. Not this time around. And Tsunoda on the radio. Tsunoda saying on the radio, there would have been contact. He forced me off. He's going to hold on to his position. To be fair, in a sprint race like this, you might as well hold on to your position and see, you know what, if the stewards give me a 5-second penalty, fair play. But at the moment, we're seeing some really lovely racing between Tsunoda and Piastri. Colapinto also entering the picture behind because these two are costing each other a monumental amount of time. Sergio Perez, thankful for it, has now disappeared up the road by 3 seconds from these two. Charles Leclerc has also gained substantially on Carlos Sainz until Carlos Sainz went 0.4 quicker last time around, a 138.1. Still, Lando Norris is falling adrift 2 seconds behind Max Verstappen. We've kind of forgotten about the front runners, to be honest with you. It was all go at the beginning of the Grand Prix. The Ferraris were keeping us entertained. But Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc have settled down a touch now that they've passed George Russell. Russell, a mile adrift of the top 4 now. George Russell all the way from 2nd to 5th, but is 7 seconds adrift of even 4th place, 11 seconds off top spot, which in 15 laps is pretty abysmal, isn't it? You know, you're looking at, that is nearly a second a lap. Or as Piastri tries to make a move on Tsunoda. Tsunoda is defending this position for his life on lap 16 of this sprint race in Austin. It is still Verstappen, Norris, Sainz, our top 3. Charles Leclerc just behind in 4th, but is gaining on his teammate. It's under investigation. Tsunoda and Piastri gaining an advantage by leaving the track. I feel like Tsunoda's done the right thing. Hold on to the position. Why not? George Russell is in 5th spot. As I said, nearly 8 seconds adrift. Now 8 seconds adrift of 4th place. Lewis Hamilton is now within a second of his teammate. Might get some DRS on it. Here comes Piastri, though. Down towards turn 1. Piastri up the inside. And Piastri is going to go and make the move. And does get the move happened. Oscar Piastri up into 10th place. Finally, Piastri very frustrated behind Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda with some very good defensive positioning for those last few laps. But the McLaren was always going to win out in terms of overall pace. Tsunoda trying his best to last it out as much as he possibly could. He's done Sergio Perez a huge favour. Sergio Perez now 5 seconds ahead of Piastri. So Sergio Perez, if anything does happen to anybody in the top 8, would be the first driver to inherit a point-scoring place. We look at how the championship will change because of this. Verstappen gaining 8 points, Norris gaining 7. So Norris loses a point to his championship rival. Charles Leclerc sort of elongates his lead from Oscar Piastri in 3rd and 4th. Carlos Sainz in 5th. Hamilton will also keep himself above George Russell, 6th and 7th spot. Hülkenberg, though, gaining a point moves him ahead of Stroll on points rather than just on finishing positions. And also Kevin Magnussen, a couple of points, puts him above Pierre Gasly in the standings. But the big talking point will be the fact that Haas move above RB in the constructor standings as it stands. Still got 3 laps left to go in this one, though. And Hülkenberg is actually closing in on Kevin Magnussen. I feel like the Haas drivers have probably been told, though, to keep position. Hamilton on the radio. And Hamilton is given the go-ahead to go racing. Just make sure you look after the car. So they don't want any bumps or bruises on the Mercedes vehicles before going into qualifying later on today. And it makes sense. We've seen George Russell and Lewis Hamilton come together a few times last season. Hasn't been much of an occurrence this year, although we haven't really seen the two of them on the same piece of track overly often, with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton separated out on track, but running 5th and 6th today. George Russell also given the same message. Goes without saying, keep it nice and clean. I think that's what the Ferrari drivers will be told as well. Carlos Sainz now within a second of Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc also within a second of his teammate. The two Ferrari cars deciding with 2 laps left to go, they're going to close the gap to Lando Norris in 2nd spot and try and ruin the McLaren's day even more than they have already. Carlos Sainz closing in to the back of Lando Norris. Keep your eyes on this one. Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz just going through turn 4 and 5 and 6 through the S's. As they get to turn 7, 8, 9, we'll see if Lando Norris is still a second or so ahead of Carlos Sainz. And will Carlos Sainz get DRS? Lando Norris trying to do his best through that first sector. 0.9 of a second. 0.992 for Carlos Sainz. He is going to get DRS then. Going to be wide open down towards turn 12. I don't think Carlos Sainz is going to be within a striking distance. Charles Leclerc, though, right under the rear wing of his teammate. And although Carlos Sainz has DRS, not able to do it this time around. One more lap left to go for Lando Norris, you feel, to hold on to P2. Carlos Sainz doing his best to do it. Lewis Hamilton, not very happy on the radio at all. Hamilton, not within DRS range of George Russell. Makes me wonder if George Russell kind of had a little bit in the bank and has just stepped on the gas a touch to move his Mercedes car out of stretch of Lewis Hamilton. Here we go then. Max Verstappen starts the final lap of this sprint. Lando Norris under pressure from Carlos Sainz. Half a second the gap. Carlos Sainz going to have a little look down towards turn 1. It's a big lock-up from Lando Norris, and it's a big mistake from Lando Norris down towards turn 1. He's opened the door, and Carlos Sainz has sauntered through it. Carlos Sainz up into 2nd spot, takes a point away from Lando Norris. A big lock-up for the Briton towards turn 1, and that's also not going to help him with Charles Leclerc right underneath the rear wing. The fastest lap of the sprint race goes to Oscar Piastri now, who's in 10th spot, trying to catch up to Sergio Perez. But keep your eyes peeled as we go through the S's. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz now coming around with the McLaren of Lando Norris between them. Last opportunity then for Charles Leclerc to make a move on Lando Norris. Could we see both Ferraris in the podium scoring places? Oh, it's not going to be enough though, is it, for Charles Leclerc? And Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris tries to make a move. Lando Norris goes wide at turn 12, trying to get past Carlos Sainz. And might just open the door to Charles Leclerc. This is an absolute calamity of a final lap from Lando Norris. He's gone too wide at turn... Oh, and then there might have been contact. Charles Leclerc, it looked like there might have been a touch between Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. Both are continuing. We see, though, the checkered flag is out. Max Verstappen around turn 20 and finishes the race. I think it was either contact or Charles Leclerc had to completely duck out of making a move. Carlos Sainz comes home in 2nd spot for the Ferrari car. Lando Norris will be on the podium spots. Charles Leclerc drops into 4th spot after starting ahead of his teammate. George Russell will come home a distant 5th. Hamilton in 6th. Kevin Magnussen is going to come home in 7th spot for the Haas team. Hulkenberg in 8th. That is 3 points scored for the Haas team in their home Grand Prix. And that means that they now move ahead of RB in the championship standings. Let's take a look at it. So Max Verstappen elongates his lead at the top of the championship by 2 points. We've got Haas moving ahead of RB, 34 points apiece. But Haas with the better finishes this season. Kevin Magnussen also moves up a spot in front of Pierre Gasly. Stunning stuff here in Austin. A very, very considered and very easy win for Max Verstappen, it does have to be said. But outside of that, absolute chaos all the way up and down the grid. What a race it was. Thank you guys so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to disappear fairly quickly just because I'm back live once again for qualifying later on this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are situated in the world. It's been absolutely incredible, this sprint race. Qualifying looking like it's going to be very tasty indeed. Oh my goodness me. And Charles Leclerc had to stamp on the brakes to make sure that he didn't hit the rear end of Lando Norris. I thought there was contact because of the way that Charles Leclerc moved under braking. And we'll see if Lando Norris actually gets a penalty for that, moving under braking and maybe braking extremely early because the Ferrari just was not expecting it. Had to duck out of it massively. No visible damage to either of the cars, though. I think Charles Leclerc did really well not to make contacts, to be honest with you. Charles Leclerc really, really quick on the brake pedal to make sure that he didn't hit into the back of Lando Norris. But I think that will be investigated because Lando Norris there, again, taking my McLaren hat off for a moment, it looked awkward. It just looked like he was, doing a bit too much in defending. Carlos Sainz, though, has to be driver of the sprint. I know we don't really do driver of the day for the sprint race, but Carlos Sainz certainly deserves it. Anyway, as I said, I'm going to disappear. I'll be back in a couple of hours' time. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well so you don't miss it. And I'll see you in a few hours' time.